Have you ever realized that certain individuals seem to show up in our lives at just the right moment? It's almost as if they were intentionally sent to guide us, deliver an important message, or help us through a challenge. Have you ever felt a strange familiarity when meeting someone, like you've known them before in some forgotten time? In this video, we'll dive into the idea that people don't appear in our lives randomly. They come for a purpose. So settle in and watch until the very end, because what you'll discover may shift your entire perspective. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and share the video. This helps us keep creating meaningful content every day to support your spiritual journey. One day, as the wise monk Hotaka meditated beneath a blooming cherry blossom tree, a young man named Hiroshi approached with reverence. "Master," he asked, "sometimes I meet someone and feel an instant connection, like I've known them before or they match my soul's energy. Other times I feel uneasy, like the person means harm. It unsettles me. Do people appear in our lives by pure chance?" Hotaka, locking his deep gaze on the youth, replied, "People never enter our lives without a reason. This truth runs deeper than we often understand. In our journey, we encounter all kinds of people. Some pass briefly, others remain and share different stages of our path." Slowly rising, Hotaka gestured toward the clear sky above. "See the birds, my young friend? They don't fly randomly. They are guided by unseen air currents, just as we are moved by the invisible flows of life." Hiroshi watched the birds soaring through the sky, pondering the layers of his teacher's insight. "Picture your life as a garden," Hotaka continued. "Each person you meet is a seed placed there by fate. Some bloom like vibrant flowers that brighten a season. Others grow into strong trees that stand the test of time, but all carry with them the potential for your inner growth." Hiroshi nodded thoughtfully, considering all the encounters he'd experienced so far. Flowers and trees he had seen blooming along his life's path. "The people who hurt us," Hotaka continued in a tone of pity, "are often our best teachers. They are sharp stones on our path, and despite the pain, they teach us to grow and find our inner strength." The young monk closed his eyes, reliving the challenges that had tempered his soul over time. "And then there are those who appear when we need them most," Hotaka said, pointing to a majestic tree, just as the roots of this tree support it. "On stormy days, these people support us. In difficult times," Hiroshi thought of a person who had been his refuge during a delicate period, a solid anchor in the midst of a storm. Someone who later left his life, even though he wished they had stayed. Finally, Hotaka concluded wisely, "Some remain with us forever. They are like fixed saint stars in our sky, bright and constant true friends, family members or a soulmate with them. We share the burdens of our days and the joy of our successes." The young monk smiled, feeling enveloped in gratitude for the special people he had met and had by his side. Hotaka looked up at the sky, a subtle light dancing in his eyes. "Recognize and appreciate every person who crosses your path. Young hero, each is an essential part of your story, and you are a part of theirs. Life is an intricate web of destinies, and each encounter contributes to the fabric of your existence. Know that there are fundamentally three types of individuals: those who support us on the path of our evolution, pushing us to overcome limits and reach new levels of awareness; those who bring a breath of renewal to our inner world; and those who encourage us to continue. This particular category of travel companions may only accompany us for a brief moment." Hiroshi listened intently, absorbing the wisdom of his master's words, understanding that every person in his life had a purpose and every encounter held a deeper meaning. But their role is crucial. They remind us of the true nature of our path, strengthening our determination to move forward. The master's words helped the young novice, who in the following years continued to follow the path illuminated by Hotaka. Every encounter, whether a casual passerby or a lasting life partner, became for him a precious piece in the mosaic of his existence. Through challenges and joys, Hiroshi learned that every person, every experience brought with it a hidden gift, a precious teaching that contributed to his growth and spiritual fulfillment. As time passed, the novice himself became a senior monk with wise eyes and a grateful heart. In his role as a spiritual guide, he shared with the young monks the profound truth taught to him by Hotaka, that life is a constant flow of meaningful encounters, each of which contributes to the unique beauty of our existence. In conclusion, what is the moral of this story? That in life, every encounter, regardless of its duration or intensity, contributes to the richness of our existence. Life is a wonderful journey of discovery, and each person who crosses our path brings with them a unique gift. Sometimes these people leave for no apparent reason. Other times they behave badly and force you to make a decision to walk away from them. What we need to understand is that their work is done because one of our needs or desires has been satisfied in a world where people's paths cross and separate like branches of a tree. True wisdom lies in opening your heart at every encounter and learning from the lessons hidden in the folds of destiny. As we move towards our life goals, difficult challenges and trials always await us, and we can feel helpless, but it is precisely in these moments that the universe sends us people who give us the courage to face these challenges and overcome the obstacles. Their support and encouragement inspire us and give us the strength to move forward in the dance of life. Hotaka told the young novice, every encounter is a musical note. Listen carefully to the melody revealed through the people who cross your path. Find beauty in the harmony of human connections. Remember, whether it is love, a special friendship, or even an acquaintance who touches our path, an encounter can change us forever. Have you ever wanted to help someone even though they didn't explicitly ask you to? How did it go? Have you ever wondered if your good intentions could cause a negative ripple effect that you weren't aware of? In the Zen story you are about to hear, we will see that not helping others unless they ask you is best for them and for yourself. So stay until the end, because what you discover thanks to Buddhist wisdom could change the way you see the world of human relationships. You will see how helping those who do not want to be helped can have negative repercussions on your life and theirs, and you will discover how your karma will be affected. In a quiet Buddhist monastery surrounded by lush gardens and ancient trees, the old and wise monk Noro gathered his disciples to discuss a topic very close to their hearts. His curiosity was palpable and his eyes were fixed on Noro. They all wanted to understand more about why, when they had helped someone, things had not gone as they would have liked. Life is like a great river, and each of us is a small boat navigating this tumultuous course. Noro began in a calm voice. Often we tend to jump into that current trying to steer other people's boats without waiting to be asked to illustrate his point. Noro shared a story passed down through the centuries about a young monk eager to help a companion in difficulty without being asked. The monk's intervention, although well-intentioned, caused a succession of unexpected events, creating an intricate labyrinth of challenges. Even dramatic for both suffering is a necessary lesson in our spiritual growth. Noro continued, each individual, like a jewel, is shaped by the pressures of life and the challenges they face. But when we intervene without being called, we rob them of the opportunity to learn, grow, and train. Noro then spoke of two friends, Shun and Masu, who had shared joys and sorrows since their school days. One day, Shun heard about the financial problems Masu had found himself in and decided to secretly help him by paying off some debts that his friend couldn't pay. Shunk intentions were naturally good, said the master. However, his gesture had unexpected and disastrous consequences. Masu, although grateful, was deprived of the opportunity to resolve the situation in his own way. This led to emotional detachment and strain on their friendship. Unsolicited help had created discord and confusion, demonstrating how even good deeds can have unexpected consequences. Each individual is at the mercy of their own karma. Noro explained every action we take, good or bad, comes back to us like an echo when we help. Without being asked, we upset the delicate balance of another person's karma and paradoxically harm our own as well. The old monk shared more stories such as that of a young man eager to solve the problems of a dear friend, without her having asked him, who found himself involved in a series of endless difficulties and misadventures. If you enter a labyrinth that is not yours but someone else's, without being asked, Noro continued, you could set off a chain reaction of events, creating an intricate web of karmic connections. Your gesture of friendship, no matter how well-intentioned, could end up doing more harm to the friend and to yourself. Suffering is often caused by past actions, and our intervention could alter the natural course of learning that the individual should experience. Even Buddha understood the sacredness of the individual learning process and how the karma of each being must be respected. Noro explained suffering is a very severe but precious teacher. Noro continued to interfere with this process is to deprive others of the wisdom that only suffering itself can teach. He spoke of many moments when empathy pushed him to offer help, but how instead Buddha taught the wisdom of waiting for the person themselves to ask for help. Every action we take is like throwing a stone into a pond, Noro said, using a metaphor to clarify the concept. The ripples spread and return to us when we help without asking. We not only influence the karma of others, but we create ripples that can impact our own lives. In conclusion, the lesson from this story is a reminder of the wisdom of discerning when to reach out and when to wait. Karma, like an unbroken river, carries our actions with it, and the way we offer our help can alter the very structure of destiny. Before reaching out to help someone, remember that each encounter and each challenge is a part of their own karmic journey. And sometimes the best help we can offer is to allow them to navigate their path themselves. Eels in a quiet Buddhist monastery surrounded by lush gardens and ancient trees, the old and sagacious monk Noro gathered his disciples to discuss a topic very close to their hearts. His curiosity was palpable and his eyes were fixed on Noro, as they all wanted to understand more about why, when they had helped someone, things had not gone as they would have liked. Life is like a great river, and each of us is a small boat. Navigating this tumultuous course, Noro began in a calm voice. Often we tend to jump into that current, trying to steer other people's boats, without waiting to be asked to illustrate his point. Noro shared a story passed down through the centuries about a young monk eager to help a companion in difficulty, without being asked. The monk's intervention, although well-intentioned, caused a succession of unexpected events, creating an intricate labyrinth of challenges. Even dramatic, for both suffering is a necessary lesson in our spiritual growth. Noro continued, each individual, like a jewel, is shaped by the pressures of life and the challenges they face. But when we intervene without being called, we rob them of the Beishu, opportunity to learn, grow, and train. Noro then spoke of two friends, Sha and M, who had shared joys and sorrows. Since their school days, one day, Sha heard about the financial problems Masu had found himself in and decided to secretly help him by paying off some debts that his friend couldn't pay. Shun's intentions were naturally good, said the master. However, his gesture had unexpected and disastrous consequences. Masu, although grateful, was deprived of the opportunity to resolve the situation in his own way. This led to emotional detachment and strain on their friendship. Unsolicited help had created discord and confusion, demonstrating how even good deeds can have unexpected consequences. Each individual is at the mercy of their own karma. Noro explained every action we take, good or bad, comes back to us like an echo. When we help without being asked, we upset the delicate balance of the person's karma, and paradoxically harm our own as well. The old monk shared more stories such as that, of a young man eager to solve the problems of a dear friend without her having asked him, who found himself involved in a series of endless difficulties and misadventures. If you enter a labyrinth that is not yours but someone else's, without being asked, Noro continued, you could set off a chain reaction of events, creating an intricate web of karmic connections. Your gesture of friendship, no matter how well-intentioned, could end up doing more harm to the friend and to yourself. Suffering is often caused by past actions, and our intervention could alter the natural course of learning. That the individual should experience, even Buddha understood the sacredness of the individual learning process and how the karma of each being must be respected. Noro explained, suffering is a very severe but precious teacher. Noro continued to interfere with this process is to deprive others of the wisdom that only suffering itself can teach. He spoke of many moments when empathy pushed him to offer help, but how instead Buddha taught the wisdom of waiting for the person themselves to ask for help. Every action we take is like throwing a stone into a pond, Noro said, using a metaphor to clarify the concept. The ripples spread and return to us when we help. Without asking, we not only influence the karma of others, but we create ripples that can impact our own lives. In conclusion, the lesson from this story is a reminder of the wisdom of discerning when to reach out and when to wait. Karma, like an unbroken river, carries our actions with it, and the way we offer our help can alter the very structure of destiny before reaching out to help. Someone remember that each encounter and each challenge is a part of their own karmic journey, and sometimes the best help we can offer is to allow them to navigate their path themselves. We must reflect on what they really need. Noro admonished, not everyone seeks advice. Sometimes they just need a listening ear and an understanding heart. Therefore, let us always remember to respect the sacredness of the individual path of each human being. Help should never be an impulsive act, but rather a conscious gesture respectful of free will and the path of personal and spiritual growth of others and ourselves. Life is an intricate web of lessons and opportunities for growth. When we offer our help without being called, we can deprive others of the precious opportunity to learn about themselves. Wisdom lies in recognizing that sometimes the best lesson is one learned through one's own effort and experience. Therefore, let our help be a beacon of light offered when requested with awareness and respect, rather than a chain of unexpected events. In a quiet Buddhist monastery located in a remote region of Japan lived the elderly and wise monk Hogi, a young woman named Shara, eager to find answers to the anxieties that pervaded her. Due to some toxic relationships, approached the master with respect. Hogi, it is said that you know the secret to recognizing bad people and protecting inner peace. Please teach me, the young woman asked with a palpable desire to learn as much as possible from the monk's wisdom. Hogi, with his typical calm, replied, "Of course, my dear, if you have the patience to listen to me, I will tell you about the signs you need to pay attention to in order to understand who is in front of you first. However, let me make an important premise. The people who, for simplicity's sake, we define as bad do not necessarily have to be monsters. They are bad or toxic in the sense that with their behaviors and the energies they emanate, they can undermine our serenity and mental well-being. However, before distancing them from us, we must try to understand the reasons that led them to be as they are. It was often the pain and trials they had to face that made them dry, annoying, and even harmful. So, dear Shara, before pushing someone away from you, ask yourself, why does he or she behave like this? Is he really a bad person, or is there something that makes him that way, And can I do something to prevent it from continuing to pollute my emotions? Only after you have given yourself an answer should you decide whether to preserve your mental health and push those people away. Shara reflected on Hog's words and was moved because she understood the enormous empathy behind them. If a person who revolves around us can harm us, we must push him away only after making sure that we cannot do anything. Hogi continued now that we've cleared that up. Let's start by looking at the first sign you need to watch out for: constant manipulation. Imagine a person who, with devious skill, distorts reality to get what he wants. It could be a colleague who uses deception to advance their career, for example. When faced with a possible promotion, he begins to manipulate you by telling you that some superiors speak badly of you and suggests that you accept a job offer from another company. You may think he's doing it for your own good, but his intent is actually to get you out of the way. The young woman listened attentively, fascinated by the monk's wisdom, and thought about a very similar experience she had had a year earlier. The second sign is a lack of genuine empathy. Hogi continued, think of someone who shows indifference to your feelings or experiences, who only seems interested when it benefits them. This behavior can profoundly undermine the quality of personal relationships because you instinctively feel that that person doesn't really care about your fate. He only shows empathy when he has to ask for something in return. Continuing, Hogi described the third sign, the constant creation of conflict. Imagine a person who, despite any harmonious situation, always seeks conflict, fueling arguments and discord. This attitude not only generates stress in relationships, but can also contaminate the surrounding environment, making it toxic. The fourth sign is the constant need for control. Hogi added, imagine a friend or partner trying to influence your every decision, trying to direct your life according to their wishes. Every time you reveal your plan or desire, that person starts taking initiatives to try to distance you from what you want in favor of their goals. Hog's teachings provided Shara with the wisdom to recognize toxic behaviors and understand the importance of empathy and discernment in dealing with others. This wisdom allowed her to protect her inner peace while being compassionate towards those around her. But the Buddha, with a serene smile, raised his hand to stop them. He gently wiped his face and looked at the merchant with compassion. Thank you, the Buddha said softly. The merchant was bewildered. Why do you thank me? He asked. The Buddha replied, you have given me the opportunity to practice patience and compassion. The merchant's anger began to dissolve as he saw the Buddha's peaceful demeanor, confused and humbled. He asked, but how can you forgive me so easily? The Buddha explained, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Forgiveness is not for the benefit of the other person. It is for your own peace and liberation. The merchant reflected on the Buddha's words and realized the burden of his own anger. He bowed deeply and left with a newfound understanding. He later encouraged his sons to follow the Buddha's teachings, realizing the true wealth of spiritual wisdom. As the story ended, Master Kumen looked at the man sitting before him. Forgiveness, he said, is not about condoning the actions of others or forgetting the pain they caused. It is about freeing yourself from the chains of anger and resentment. It is about understanding that everyone is on their own path, and sometimes they act out of their own suffering. By forgiving you, release yourself from the grip of that suffering. The man nodded, feeling a weight lift from his heart. Thank you, Master Kumen. I understand now. Forgiveness is a gift I give to myself, not to others. Kumen smiled and concluded, remember, forgiveness is a practice, not a one-time event. It is a continual process of letting go and finding peace within yourself. This story teaches us that true forgiveness is about inner peace and liberation. It is not about excusing the behavior of others, but about freeing ourselves from the emotional burden of holding on to anger and resentment. By practicing forgiveness, we can cultivate a sense of compassion and understanding, both for ourselves and for those who have hurt us. This in turn allows us to move forward on our spiritual journey with a lighter heart and a clearer mind. But the Buddha remained unperturbed, with a calm gaze and a persistent smile. Cumin described the atmosphere that followed as if a wave of calm had enveloped the place. The Buddha did not react with anger. He sat with his eyes half closed, accepting the apparently offensive act with his heart. The merchant, seeing the Buddha's reaction, realized the helplessness of his actions, and the anger he had harbored turned into remorse. All the accusations and insults he had prepared came to mind, but in front of that peaceful presence, everything seemed insignificant. The Buddha did not condemn the man, he did not humiliate him. Instead, he offered him compassion and peace. Cumin continued. At this point, the monk interrupted the narration to highlight a crucial lesson. Dear friend, forgiveness is like that piece of the Buddha. It is not something we do concretely. It is not simply saying, I forgive you. It is something that happens when we are willing to let go of the past and see the being before us in a new light. The monk resumed the story and described how the man, touched by the Buddha's compassion, returned home. The images of the peaceful Buddha and his act of spitting in his face collided in his mind. That night, the man couldn't sleep. His mind was dominated by the image of the smiling Buddha and at the same time by the act of spitting that he had committed against him. The man, Cumin said, was at a crossroads between remorse for his past and the possibility of a different future. Cumin emphasized the importance of this pivotal moment in the story. That man, he said, was going through a process of deep introspection. He was trying to forgive himself, feeling guilty and ashamed for how he had behaved. The man, after days of internal torment, realized that his imagination was constantly constructing painful scenarios based on that past imagination. Cumin said, can be a powerful ally or a fierce enemy in the wrong hands. It can create an endless cycle of anger and resentment over time. The man began to understand that the Buddha had not reacted to his actions with judgment, but with a very clear objective. Slowly he abandoned thoughts of revenge and began to sincerely ask for forgiveness. One day he returned to the feet of the Buddha, no longer in anger, but with genuine repentance. Forgive me, O great master, he pleaded. My ignorance has left me blind. I was just focused on my life and the prosperity of my family. The Buddha, with his eyes half opened and a smile of peace, listened to the man's words. But when he asked for forgiveness, the Buddha shook his head. I can't forgive you, he said kindly, because there is nothing to forgive. You have done nothing wrong to me. The man, surprised, asked the Buddha why he did not want to forgive him. Cumin explained that the Buddha had nothing to forgive, as he had accepted the man's act without judging him. It was as if the Buddha saw beyond the past and present feeling, the pure essence of that individual. This refusal to forgive, according to Cumin, taught the man a valuable lesson. Forgiveness is not only an act of mercy towards others, but also an internal process of liberation. The Buddha taught Cumin continued that to forgive is to perform an act of compassion, both towards others and towards ourselves. The man, impressed by the Buddha's wisdom, began to reflect deeply on the meaning of forgiveness. The idea that forgiveness was not something that could be given or received, but rather an internal experience of liberation, impacted him. The story continued with the merchant, inspired by the Buddha, deciding to embark on a path of self-forgiveness. As time went by, he learned to let go of the guilt and shame that had tormented him. The practice of meditation became his refuge, where he learned to observe each moment without letting himself be dominated by the memory of the past or by worries about the future. dear friend Kuman said, turning to the man who was listening intently. Forgiveness is not just a gesture we make toward others, but an act of kindness that extends toward ourselves as well. When we learn to see each moment with new eyes, overcoming painful memories and letting go of our destructive imagination, we can find inner peace. The story concluded with the merchant who, inspired by spiritual practice, eventually healed the wounds of the past and approached the Buddha to thank him. The Buddha, with his compassionate smile, received him with joy. Kuman concluded the story by emphasizing that forgiveness, both toward others and oneself, is a complex and profound process. On our spiritual journey, he said, forgiveness guides us to a higher level of consciousness and compassion. It is a gift we can offer ourselves and others, freeing ourselves from the chains of the past and opening the doors to a bright future. But what is the moral of this story, and what does it teach us? The moral is clear. Forgiveness in the Buddhist view is not an act as an end in itself. It is not something we can give or receive, but is a gift of compassion that can be extended to oneself and others. In this approach, forgiveness becomes a means of making those who have made a mistake understand the extent of their actions. The compassion and kindness with which we offer forgiveness practically and indirectly become tools to open the eyes of those who have made the mistake, leading them to a deeper awareness. Because whoever commits an evil act towards someone actually commits it against himself, since karma will cause the effects to fall on him like a boomerang. He will have to forgive himself. Remember, forgiveness is not just a personal liberation, but a process that can lead to the transformation of others. Opening yourself to the kind of forgiveness we talk about is a way to promote awareness and growth, creating a bridge to a future of understanding and serenity. Sometimes we are so good and kind that we forget ourselves. Allowing others to use us. The dark side of kindness is believing we must always be kind, leading us to become invisible. Have you ever wondered why you tend to be too kind, or why there are people who are always kind and ready to help you, even when you don't ask for help? In the Zen story you will hear soon, you will discover that there is a dark side to kindness. If you want to live peacefully, you have to understand it to find the right balance. Stay until the end, because the advice you receive will help you live your relationships with others more serenely and find your inner peace. In a monastery nestled in the mountains of Japan lived the elderly monk Noro, famous for his extreme wisdom. One day, a girl named Kiara approached him, telling of her disappointments. Master, over time, I have collected many disappointments linked to people who I thought were friends and who instead did not prove that they were. I have always been an extremely kind person, but my concern for others has only brought me so much pain. What am I doing wrong? The master smiled kindly and began to tell an ancient story, a legend passed down by monks for generations. The story was about a village surrounded by a lush forest, a place where kindness and generosity among people were the beating heart of the community. The prosperity of that village was linked to a magnificent cherry tree. Imagine, Noro said to Kiara, a majestic tree whose roots go deep into the earth, a symbol of the strength and generosity of the village. Legend has it that the village prospered thanks to the wisdom of the people who learned to share their resources. However, Noro added, over time, some people began to take more than they gave. Some approached the cherry tree, picking the fruits without contributing to the care of the tree, or without sharing them with the other villagers. So little by little, the generosity of the village began to weaken, and with it, the entire community. The young Kiara listened attentively, her eyes reflecting the desire to understand the nuances of life. With his serene gaze, continued to share the history of the village, bringing to light details and teachings that had been passed down through the centuries. The moral of this story, said the monk, is that generosity must be balanced. We must give with an open heart, but with wisdom and balance. If we give without discernment, we risk exhausting our resources and weakening our ability to be truly useful to others. Kiara was happy to listen to the Master's words, and a new awareness about the concept of kindness arose in her. We might think that kindness is always good, since it helps maintain our well-being. Arrow continued, however, it is not when it crosses boundaries and leads to acting kindly in all circumstances. In this case, it is toxic kindness, a form of silliness where we forget ourselves to be attentive to the needs of others. Think of a parent who gives everything of himself for the well-being of his children to the point of putting himself in the background. Arrow's story was enriched with new details. He described how some people, in their desire to accumulate, had neglected their duty to care for the tree that had given them so much. He explained how the connection between giving and taking was a delicate balance, a harmonious flow that required attention and respect. Kiara, immersed in the story, began to reflect on her own life and the relationships she had experienced over the years. The monk, sensing her desire to learn, continued to share his wisdom. He talked about how expecting too much from others could lead to disappointment and how setting boundaries was essential to maintaining one's emotional well-being. Remember, Arrow said, I'm not saying that doing something for others is wrong. It is, however, focusing only on others can be problematic. There are situations where we want to please others because they ask for our help, or because we believe sometimes mistakenly that they need us, and we offer to make them feel good. Time passed peacefully as Iro and Kiara delved into the nuances of generosity and wisdom. The monk spoke of how generosity, when it came from a balanced heart, could transform relationships and bring joy to both those who give and those who receive. Kiara felt that the monk's wisdom was helping her understand many things. She learned that generosity should flow like a harmonious current, fueled by deep awareness and sincere love, and that it should never be forced. Arrow concluded his narration with loving advice. Kiara, try to be like the cherry tree in the village. Offer your generosity, but keep your balance. Find joy in the act of giving itself, without expecting too much in return. Remember that extreme kindness can be harmful. Sometimes we don't leave room for others to achieve what they want because we anticipate their needs. Furthermore, we focus too much on what others need and forget our own needs. In this way, we cancel ourselves and begin to become invisible due to our own actions. By always being attentive to the needs of others, our own needs take a back seat and we trample on ourselves. We take away our value and others take advantage of it. Kiara thanked the monk with a heart full of gratitude. She felt that the story and the advice that came from it would mark a new chapter in her life. But what does this story teach us? What is its moral? The moral is that generosity is a powerful gift, but must be cultivated with care and awareness if we want it to bring benefits both to us and to those who receive our help. Balance in giving and receiving is the key to a fulfilling and meaningful life. If we are too kind and willing to do whatever is asked of us, just to be considered good people, we end up no longer knowing how to say no and being exploited in the long run. This could have repercussions on personal motivation, self-esteem, and our mental balance. So what should we do? Should we stop being good people? No, because there are various ways to be kind in a healthier way. You can set limits, making others understand how far they can go. Say goodbye to guilt, learning to say no when you can't or don't want to go further. Draw up a list of priorities so you can continue helping others without putting yourself aside. Remember, be kind but not overly, so this could harm yourself and even those you want to help. How many times have you had the impression that someone has entered your life to destroy your dreams and goals? Unfortunately, often we have to deal daily with the presence of individuals who want to harm us for various reasons, such as personal grudges, frustration, and envy. Thanks to this Zen story, you will discover how to recognize the signs that someone wants to destroy you. Furthermore, if you stay until the end, you will also learn how to behave to prevent this from happening. In a quiet Buddhist monastery, nestled among the Japanese mountains, lived the elderly monk Aizen, known for his wisdom and profound knowledge of the human soul. On a winter day, while the smell of boiling tea wafted through the air, his disciples gathered in the temple to listen to Aizen address a crucial topic. "Today we will discuss a crucial topic," the monk said, in a calm but penetrating voice. "We will talk about the 8 signs that can clearly reveal who among those who enter our lives may wish to destroy us." One of the disciples, KY, impatient to know more, asked Master Aizen, "What are these signs? How can we protect ourselves from those who intend to harm us?" Aizen nodded and introduced the first signal to pay attention to by telling an ancient anecdote. Once upon a time in the monastery village, there was a sage who owned a precious gem. One day, a cunning man approached him, praising his wisdom and asking to admire the gem. While the wise man showed the gem, the scoundrel distracted him with cunning speech and exchanged the gem for a shard of glass. The wise man realized too late that he had been deceived and had no way of recovering the gem, which would have ensured him a peaceful old age. Manipulation is like a silent shadow, Aizen continued. Those who seek to destroy us will use cunning and tricks of all kinds to distort reality and deceive us. We must learn to recognize the subtle games of manipulation. Only in this way can we protect ourselves and our inner truth. As the disciples began to ponder the time someone had tried to manipulate them, Aizen told another story to illustrate the second sign: destructive criticism. Imagine a flower garden began, and imagine that the plants, instead of receiving nourishment and love, were constantly trampled by someone. Although initially it seemed like a small gesture, over time, the garden began to dry out and the plants withered one after the other. Constant criticism is like heavy footsteps that trample on our self-esteem. Aizen emphasized those who wish to destroy us will use derogatory words and constant judgments to wither our spirit. We must learn to distinguish between constructive criticism, which helps us grow, and destructive criticism, which has the sole purpose of undermining our trust. With a smile, Aizen introduced the third signal: social isolation. In a small village, he said, there was a fisherman loved by everyone for his character and helpfulness. One day, an envious individual began to sow discord by creating false stories about him. Gradually, the fisherman found himself isolated. Many friends abandoned him, and the village ended up ignoring him. His life, within a few months, changed radically. In addition to finding himself alone, he lost many customers and his business went into crisis. Isolating someone is like cutting the roots of a tree. Aizen explained those who wish to destroy us will try to separate us from others, creating divisions and spreading suspicion. To prevent this from happening, we must cultivate strong connections, give others an irreproachable image of ourselves, and resist attempts at isolation. To talk about the fourth signal, defamation, Aizen invited one of his guests to speak and tell a story. In a region not far from this, the narrator began, there was a merchant much respected by all. A malicious rival began spreading unfounded rumors about his honesty, undermining his reputation and causing the village community to begin to despise him. Little by little, although the poor man had always been honest, people began to stop buying from him. This led him to have to close his shop and move elsewhere. Defamation is a poison that corrodes our integrity. Aizen commented, remember that those who wish to destroy us will use their tongue as a sword, wounding us and our reputation with lies of all kinds. We must defend our reputation with truth and transparency, making sure that whatever they say to defame us does not resonate with people. Through these stories, Aizen imparted wisdom on recognizing and handling the various ways others might seek to harm us. emphasizing the importance of awareness, strong connections, and maintaining our integrity. The disciples, some in tears, recalled in their memory the events in which someone had damaged them through their reputation, and they reflected on how they could prevent it from happening in the future thanks to the Master's words. Aizen spoke of the fifth signal, which was the sabotage of opportunities. He began by imagining a craftsman who, every time he was about to achieve success, someone came to sabotage his work. Tools disappeared, plans were ruined, material, IAL, were damaged essentially. Despite his ability, this poor man was unable to progress. Sabotage is like a wind that extinguishes the flames of our success, Aizen stated. Those who wish to destroy us will seek to damage our opportunities by creating obstacles and impediments. To prevent this from happening, we must remain vigilant and protect our path to success. We can do this by making sure we have people we can trust around us and by keeping our ideas safe without talking about them before they are realized. As the day continued and the hot tea relaxed the disciples, who continued to listen with interest, Aizen addressed the sixth signal, the violation of privacy, by telling a legend. In an ancient city, there was a keeper of ancient secrets. Someone envious of his enormous knowledge tried to spy on his manuscripts with the of stealing the most hidden secrets, but the custodian, thanks also to a trusted collaborator, remained vigilant and protected his treasure. Remember that your privacy is sacred. Aizen emphasized those who wish to destroy us will try to invade our most intimate space, seeking information that could be used against us. We must protect our private sphere firmly, carefully selecting the people to whom we open the doors of our lives, so we can protect ourselves. While the fog descended, making the atmosphere in which the monastery was enveloped even more enchanting, the Master introduced the seventh signal. Espionage in a distant land, he said. There was a virtuous warrior, a rival fearing his strength, sent spies to study his movements, but the warrior, with keen intuition, discovered the intrigues and repelled them. Espionage is like a shadow trying to steal our mental clarity. Aizen warned those who wish to destroy us will use devious means to observe our every move. We must be aware of external influences and protect our autonomy. The eighth signal that Aizen shared was the one linked to physical aggression and threats. In a remote valley, he recounted, there was a devout monk who was trying to bring some young people who were dedicated to crime to the right path. A devious individual whose shady interests were threatened by the virtuous actions of the monk tried to destroy him, physically having him beaten so that fear would induce him to desist. Physical aggression is the extreme frontier of darkness. Aizen warned those who wish to destroy us may resort to threats and violence. When someone threatens us, we must protect ourselves by seeking help when necessary. At the end of the day, and the stories he had told, Aizen looked at his disciples with compassionate eyes. My children, life is an intricate dance, and others can be our guides or our shadows. Watch and be aware of these signs, but do not live in constant fear. Cultivate a garden of trust and mutual respect around you. Surround yourself with trusted people and don't allow the shadows to destroy the light you have inside. I feel lonely, and it seems that the lack of friends is a problem. Everyone around me seems happy with their friends, and I wonder why I can't have the same joy. The monk Kobo looked at her with compassionate eyes and invited her to sit down. Alina, friendship is truly a precious gift, but your happiness shouldn't come from how many friends you have. I would like to share with you the reasons why not having many friends or having any at all is not something to worry about, but can even be an advantage. Kobo, with his wisdom born from decades of studies and reflections, began to reveal the secrets of authentic friendship. Dear Elena, the first thing I want to tell you is that relationships and human bonds are very important. This means that in life we should not measure them in terms of quantity, but rather quality. Would you rather have a large number of people with whom you can share trivial things, or on the contrary, a very small number of people with whom to share very intense emotions and moods? Facing these rhetorical questions, Elena began to reflect and understand many of the people she saw around her were full of friends. But what was the quality of those relationships? She asked herself, Kobo, happy to read in the young woman's eyes that she was beginning to see things differently, continued listing the reasons why having few friends, or none at all, should not be seen as a problem. Having few friends guarantees a certain degree of freedom and authenticity. In this way, it is easier to be yourself and live without restriction or external influences. If you want to live a fulfilling life, you don't have to conform to what others think is cool or normal. After all, who decides what normality really is? Kobo went on to explain that quantity is never synonymous with quality. Having fewer friends allows you to focus on building deeper, more meaningful relationships. Imagine having just one friend with whom you share the joy and sorrows of life. This connection could be so deep that the person understands all your emotional nuances. This is a priceless treasure. Elena reflected on this idea, remembering an episode in which a girl she knew supported her in a difficult moment, understanding her without needing many words. She began to understand that in life, instead of wanting to have dozens of friends around you who are not really friends, it is much better to focus on finding that person who reads and sees life like you. Kobo, after giving Elena time to reflect, continued with his explanations and spoke of another reason why he preferred quality over quantity in human relationships. Human relationships require a lot of emotional energy. Having few friends allows you to focus this energy on the people who really matter. Think about how many conflicts or tensions usually occur in large groups of friends. Maintaining small relationships allows you to preserve your positive energy for those who truly support you. If you have to argue with someone, for example, to resolve a conflict, it is much better that it is a person who really matters in your life or not. Elena found that group dynamics were often stressful, while more intimate interactions brought her joy and comfort. Kobo went on to highlight how loneliness can be an opportunity to explore oneself and grow personally. In the tranquility of your solitude, you can discover hidden passions, latent interests, or unexplored talents. You are not limited by the expectations of others, and this allows you to grow in unexpected and powerful ways. So, dear Elena, my invitation is to view loneliness from a different perspective. Having just a few true friends makes it easier to find time to be alone with yourself. And this quiet self-connection is a vital part of both spiritual and personal development. Elena began to reflect on how much time she could give to her own passions when she wasn't constantly trying to stay surrounded by people, and how spending time in solitude pulled her away from the need for others' approval, which never truly brought her peace. In those quiet moments, she uncovered parts of herself she hadn't known before, and it was a beautiful discovery. At last, Kobo highlighted that fewer social obligations bring more freedom to our lives. Picture being offered a job in a distant place with nothing holding you back. You could say yes to new experiences without needing to weigh how it would impact your circle of friends. Elena imagined those with fewer ties having the chance to say yes more easily. She had met people who, thanks to this freedom, had traveled far to chase their dreams and ambitions. Kobo added, when your friendships are few but meaningful, even if you move across the world, those bonds won't break. They stay with you, beyond time, beyond distance. After listening closely, Elena realized she had gained a fresh understanding of what friendship really meant. Not having many friends didn't mean she was alone. It meant she had the space to look inward and value the relationships that truly mattered. Master Kobo gently embraced her and said, never forget, Your happiness isn't determined by how many friends you have, but by the depth of your connection with the few who truly care. I've met people who claimed they had no friends, only to discover they had one person who mattered more than any crowd ever could. And one more thing, those who have few friends are often the most sincere, thoughtful people I've ever met. They don't accept shallowness. Often people who prefer solitude carry within them a rich and unique inner life, along with rare human depth. To sum up, what's the message of this story? That loneliness, when seen from a fresh lens, can become a trusted companion on your journey to happiness, spiritual growth, and personal evolution. It's not something to run from, and ultimately, a joyful life doesn't require many friends, just a few that are real. It seems this story of Elena and Master Kobo resonated with you. Loneliness can open doors to self-discovery and bring you